Good morning, makers. It's time for MakerCraft Live. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Again, this is Michele, and today we're going to be making our own pom-pom and tassel wall art. So first thing we're going to go over today are different techniques of how to make a pom-pom. There are several ways that you can do that. You can buy pom-pom makers. We Are Memory Keepers has a pom-pom maker set. If you have a 3D printer, there's a lot of files that you can buy online for making pom-pom making tools like this. And this is actually one that the Creation Station created in Fusion 360 and we posted to Thingiverse. So if you have a 3D printer, you can look up our profile on thingiverse.com, the Creation Station, and you can download and print this file. You can also use what they call the fork method. This one's pretty easy, and I'll show you a little bit how to do that in just a little bit later. But probably the easiest one to do at home, especially with your family, is the cardboard circle technique, and I'll show you how to do that one in a few minutes. So in order to make your pom-pom, what you're going to need most importantly is your pom-pom making tool, and today we'll be using these two, and I'll just do a quick demonstration on the fork, but we'll do mostly our main pom-pom we're going to do on this little cardboard set here. You're also going to need yarn or string if you have at home. You can get, if you don't have yarn, you can get some online. They will ship directly to your house, or you can see if you have some laying around in your house like I do. You're also going to need a pair of good scissors. If you are working with your kids, you want to make sure that they're very careful. I have a really pointy scissor here. You can use safety scissors. It just might be a little bit difficult cutting through some of the layers of the yarn because it's going to be pretty thick. So once you have your materials, you're going to take your tool, and I'm just going to show quickly how to get the fork one started. But what you're going to do is you're just going to take your yarn and you're going to wrap it around many times, and it's going to be pretty large. And actually that's the wrong piece of yarn there. So there we go. You're going to wrap it around several times. And when you do this, you're going to make sure it's like a big mound of yarn that you're creating. So we're just going to keep going. And you also want to make sure that you leave some space at the end and at the front here, because that's where we're going to go in and put in our tie off. Now this is a little bit slippery, this technique, but basically you just keep wrapping it around as big as you want it to be, and the bigger the better, because that's going to make your pom-pom really poofy. And then you're going to take another piece of yarn and you're going to stick it in through the middle pieces here and tie it off. And then once you tie it off, you're going to cut all your fabric, and then your yarn, and then you'll have the basic shape of your pom-pom, and you'll just have to go in and trim it. But this is a fun one to use with the kids, but most of the time you're going to find that this one is going to be the easier technique to use. Now all you need to do with this is you need to make a circle on a piece of cardboard, and probably a lot of you have cardboard boxes from all the deliveries you guys are getting. And you're going to make cut out a circle, and then you're going to cut out, kind of looks like a keyhole a little bit. You're going to make a little bit of a V cut here, and then a smaller circle in the middle. And you're going to do that twice. Now, you don't have to make it this size. You can make bigger ones, which is going to use a lot of yarn, or you can make smaller ones, but you want to make sure that you have two pieces, and that's very important, because when you're going to wrap it, your tie-off yarn is going to go in between the two layers here. So, let's get started with this one. Alright, so you want to make sure that you put your piece of yarn on there, and hold your pieces together. And what I like to do is I kind of like to overlap over where the yarn starts, just to kind of make sure it's nice and tight. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap it around your circle like so. And you're going to do this for a while. It's going to take a few minutes probably to fill this all the way up, but you want to make sure it's nice and full. All right. And now that I've got it over here, I'm going to try and move I'm going to do another layer, but I'm going to work myself over to the other side. And you notice I'm not going all the way over here. And the reason why I'm not doing that is because I want to make sure that I have enough space to go in and cut off the yarn. And also, if I start moving my yarn over here, the pom-pom's going to be smaller. So by doing it this way, the pom-pom material is going to all be the same length when I cut it on this side. All right. So this is a fun activity to do with the family. I do want to warn you that it can get a little bit messy, especially when you come to the cutting part. So definitely have like a Swiffer or a vacuum ready for after cutting your pom-poms. I'll tell you, this weekend my house is just full of all that fluff. All right. And we're just going to keep doing this for a while. And you want to make sure that your pom-poms are nice and full. Again, I keep mentioning that, but because it's important. You can have not as full pom-poms, and that's fine, but if you really want those big, fluffy, really full-looking ones, you're going to be doing this for quite a while because you want to make sure it's nice and full. Now, most of the time I use my pom-pom maker from We Are Keepers, but this is good to use in a pinch too. And you just want to make sure that you're equally distributing the yarn, because you want to make sure you fill in all the areas. And you're just going to keep going back and forth, around, around, around. And what's really cool about pom-pom making is you can also do patterns. You can look online and see people have pom-pom patterns for making animal faces. They have patterns for making flowers. So you can do all sorts of stuff with a pom-pom. They're also great for accessorizing onto hats, shirts, purses, a whole bunch of different bunch of shoes. Oh, that'd look so cute on shoes. All right, so we're getting close there. All right, got some pieces over here I need to fill in. All right. So that's probably good right about there. And then we're just going to cut our yarn. And then this is the part where we have to be a little bit careful. We're going to be cutting our yarn first, and then we're going to be tying it off. So what we're going to do is you're going to stick your scissors in between your pieces of cardboard here, and you want to be very careful. And you want to snip it through. Now, some of the times you might cut your cardboard, which is okay. You can always make another one. But you want to make sure you have a nice hold on it because you don't want all your pieces that you cut to fall out of your cardboard. And you can see why I said make sure you have some good scissors here because it gets really thick. You might also want to peek it through a little bit. Just do the top layers of the yarn, get those done first, and then go in and do the part that's underneath. All right. Want to make sure that we have everything all cut out. All right. So now that we have our pom-pom cut out, we're going to take a piece of yarn here and we're going to stick it in between the two pieces of cardboard. Now you want to be very careful with this part. All right, and then you're just going to wrap it all the way around here. And then you're going to tie it off. And you want to make sure you do it nice and tight. If you do it too loose, all the parts that you just cut out of your pom-pom are going to fall out. So you want to be very careful to tie it nice and tight. All right. And once you have that all tied off, we're going to pull our pom-pom out. And then this is the part where it can kind of get a little messy. This is where we're going to trim our pom-pom. Now we're just making sure that the pom-pom is the same length all the way around. And what I like to do is I kind of like to rotate it and do it in sections. So some parts I might have cut too long when I was cutting through the cardboard piece, and that's okay, that happens sometimes. With the cardboard, you're going to get a lot of pieces that are a lot longer, especially near the top of your pom-pom where you tied it off. And that's fine. All right. And just keep working it all the way around. You want to make sure it's nice and even. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to make sure that you don't have any pieces that are too long that are sticking out. Like this one's a little bit long here, so we're just going to trim that off. All right, so that's pretty good, and that's one of the techniques to make a pom-pom. So we're going to put that one aside, and now we're going to work on making our tassels. All right, so just clean off our space here. Now to make a tassel, that's going to be a lot easier, and we're actually going to use an empty toilet paper roll. That's right, everyone, another toilet paper craft. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your toilet paper roll, fold it in half, and then you're going to cut it, and you're only going to use 1/2 of your toilet paper roll. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some more yarn, and this is similar to how we made the pom-poms, but it's going to be a little bit easier. So what you're going to do, the length of your tassel is going to be about this big. If you want to have smaller tassels, you can cut the toilet paper roll smaller, but for today we're going to use this as our size. And all you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of yarn, you're going to hold it in place with your thumb, and then you're just going to wrap it around. And similar to how we did with the pom-poms, you want to make sure that you kind of wrap it around the middle where you have your starting piece at, and then you're going to wrap it around several times. Now this is a lot quicker process than it is for making the pom-poms, but you're still using a lot of yarn, so you want to make sure you have a fair amount to use. Alright, so once I'm going to do that, now I'm going to work myself over to the other side. And you see, I'm not going all the way to the end. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't want my strings to fall off here. I want them to kind of stay more in the center because it's going to be easier when I tie them off. Alright, and you're going to keep wrapping this. Remember, the more you wrap it, the fuller your tassel or your pom-pom are going to be. So just keep that in mind. Alright. I think that's good for today on that one. We're just going to cut that off. And then we're going to cut 2 pieces of yarn. We're going to cut off one that's going to be a little bit longer, and that's going to be for our top part. And then we're going to have one that's a little bit shorter, and that's going to be where we make our bottom part of our tassel. All right. So what we're going to do once we have this wrapped is we're going to stick this piece of yarn through here. We're going to stick it all the way through, and you see it kind of bent my cardboard. When I did that, it kind of creates this little pocket for me to stick my yarn through. And then we're just going to make sure it's kind of nice and even. Pop that back into place, and then we're going to tie this off. Make sure that piece of yarn there. All right. You want to make sure it's nice and tight. And it looks like I missed a piece, so hold on one sec. You want to make sure you get all your pieces tied in. All right, there we go. All right, so now we're going to tie it off. Nice and tight. All right, and now the messy part. So you're gonna take your cardboard and we're gonna cut through the bottom here. All right, so once you've cut it through, you're gonna make sure you have all your pieces laying down, and then you're going to take your smaller piece of yarn that you cut out before, and you're gonna lay your tassel right over it. Now, you can put this anywhere. You can put it really high up if you want to, or you can put it low. I'm gonna put mine a little bit higher up. So I'm gonna take this, and you wanna make sure that your yarn is kind of as smooth as you can be, so that all the pieces are facing the bottom here. And then we're just gonna tie a really tight knot here. So once you have it tied off, then you're just gonna take this and we're gonna trim it just like we did with our pom-poms. Now I'm just estimating that I have some really short pieces, so I'm gonna use my hand as a guide here for trimming my yarn. And turn it around. And again, you want to try and make sure that you cut them so they're almost all the same size. It might be hard, especially if you're working with really crinkled yarn. Like this one's a little bit wavy. All right. So that's it. That's how you make a tassel, and that's how you make a pom-pom. So I already made some pom-poms for our art piece today. And so we're going to use that today to make our piece. So for your wall art, what you're going to need is you're going to need something for your pom-poms to hang up on. For me, I have some craft dowels that I have at home, and today I just wrapped it in yarn to kind of give it a cool little color. You can also use a hanger. Wire hangers work really well. Or if you have one of those wire hangers that has a little cardboard tube on it, like you get from the dry cleaners, that works really well also. You're also going to need some string or yarn to make for the hanging portion. And so I just used some yarn that I tied off on the ends here. And then you can cut it however short. If you want a really short one like this, or you can have a really long hanging one like that. Get creative with how you want to tie it off. So for our piece today, you can see I have a blue, kind of a white with gray, orangey red, a dark gray, beige, and a light gray. And those are going to be the colors of all my pom-poms and tassels that I used. Now, I have a way to make really big pom-poms, and I can also make small pom-poms. So we're going to be using different sizes. So you can also make different sizes by making your circles small or big, depending on how big or small you want them to be. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to, I have all our pom-poms made and all our tassels made, and so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie them on here. So I have different lengths of yarn, so some are small, some are long. The big pom-poms are going to be very long and their string, so I'm going to make them the longest part on here. They're going to be hanging down the lowest. Alright, so once you tie it on, I'm just going to snip all the extra here because I don't want that to be showing when it hangs up. Alright, so you can also use multiple colors in a pom-pom if you wanted to. It can create a really cool effect, and I'll show you one that I did where I made kind of like, it looks like a flower is in it, which is really cool. All right. So I'm just going to tie this off here. And I'm just checking to make sure that when I tie it, it's going to be the same length as the red one, because I kind of want them all to be about the same height. And I have this one. So this is an activity you can get all the family to join in. So everyone can make pom-poms, and then you all can make a piece of art that can hang in the wall in your house. I started getting into macrame a little bit, and with that I put some pom-poms in some of my finished work, and we have one of the pieces in our living room. It's really cool. But you can also use macrame string as well. That works okay with making pom-poms. You can use all sorts of different things. You can also add trimmings to your art piece if you wanted to, like ribbons or different kind of stuff like rope. You can do a whole bunch of different things with your art piece. Alright, and so we're getting to the last color for the big pom-poms. And you're going to notice I have some different yarn in here too. There's different gauges of yarn. The blue one's a little bit thicker than the others, which is okay. But if you're really conscientious about that, you might want to try and stick with the same type of yarn. All right, so we have that. Okay, so we have our pom-poms on there. Just making sure they all are about the same height. There we go. And then we're going to put on our tassels. So the tassels I'm going to put a little bit shorter. Bit down. There we go. Do our next piece. So if you were to do this, comment below with what colors you'd like to do with your yarn. So with the blue, you're going to notice a big difference between the other yarns and this one, but I really like this color. I thought it was really pretty blue. All right, so we got there for our last tassel. Okay, so we're moving on to our last portion, which is going to be the smaller pom-poms. I'm just double knotting these on here. That's just keeping it in place. And our last pom-pom. All right. Got them all cut off. And we're gonna fix that, make sure it's hanging down, and then you just flip it on over. And wipe away all your floof. And There you go. You have your pom-pom and tassel wall art. And we'll take a picture later today to show you what it looks like on the wall. But that's pretty much it. The hardest part is probably getting all your pom-poms ready together. That's going to take the longest time to do, but assembling it's going to be pretty quick. If you have any questions or comments about it, leave a comment below. And thank you again for joining us today on MakerCraft Live. We'll see you next time.